I believe character is built on how one chooses to handle or interpret adversity. We see a lot of roles and meanings. In our society, we are currently undergoing the COVID-19 pandemic, and although it seems like we're almost past the peak, the efforts and sacrifices of healthcare workers across the world will not be forgotten. But nationwide, there also needs to be a recognition of how prisoners are also suffering due to this virus. Although not covered a lot by mass media, nationwide there are over 14,000 cases of coronavirus in prison. We must recognize that this affects not only everyday people, but also prisoners and frontline healthcare workers. So tell me a bit about your work as a medical scribe and what your normal day looks like. So the role of a scribe is to do the documentation simultaneously or while the patients are visiting with the doctor, and that in turn is going to free the doctor to spend more time seeing more patients or spend more time with each individual patient. So that's the basic idea of why we exist and why doctors want to have scribes. I go with the doctor to the patient's appointments and I listen in and have a bit of training on how to convert what is said in layman's terms to how and what the doctor wants to be documented. And I do that with the appointments across the day. Some doctors have 15 appointments and some have 40 appointments. What do you think of the coronavirus situation currently? In the coronavirus situation, there's obviously a public health component, but there's also an economic component. Obviously, you want to protect people and save as many lives as possible, make it so people don't have to worry about getting sick. But that always comes at a cost. So that is something we might have to live with 6 months a year or until there's a more permanent solution like a vaccine. How do you think this situation will impact your healthcare future and healthcare as a whole? So for me, the most immediate impact has been the scribe service at USC Keck has been frozen. It was put on hold a few weeks ago, and that will have repercussions in my medical school applications. It's almost impossible to think about applying and interviewing with a medical school and not mention the coronavirus situation because it's so pervasive. It's going to be fresh in people's minds that these viruses can be about, and public health will be the forefront of our minds.
Hello, I am Nathaniel Rolfe. I am working as a medical scribe at USC and volunteering at the county hospital, and I am applying to medical school.
I'm here at the LAC USC Medical Center, and I think things have been like a lot different around here. In the beginning of the semester, I kind of referenced how I want to be a doctor because I want to help like prisoners and just treat anyone no matter what their socioeconomic needs were and what their position was. I think some of that aspect, some of my perspective towards being a doctor has actually really changed, because I think how the public perceives healthcare personnel is very different compared to how it was maybe 3 months ago. Because healthcare personnel are regarded as the people who are considered the heroes of this pandemic. But I think a thing that I really took for granted is how much healthcare has responsibility to helping people go back to their normal selves. In this pandemic, so many people are affected in a way that we can't really grasp, and due to this quarantining, I can't imagine what everyday patients must have to go through whenever they want to return to a normal life after recovering from a disease. Normally, so things here are actually returning back to normal a bit. There are a lot more people around here. There used to be homeless people sleeping on the streets. That actually has not returned yet. I'm actually not too sure what happened there. And then now the emergency room also looks empty, so it's a very interesting picture that it paints. And I think, for me, the time I felt I was most at home at Los Angeles was probably here, because I did see like the dark side of Los Angeles, as people like to refer to as like the homelessness crisis and the amount of homeless people that would check into this hospital. But I also saw like the bonding in Los Angeles, the community in which you see people talking, people working together to help each other, to give kind of like what a good neighbor would be. And I think that's really what Los Angeles is all about.